Rabbi Friedman. Amazing always to have you on the radio. You became our official spiritual guide. Your spiritual perspective is highly sought out by everybody who listen to you, by our community. Our community respects and loves you very much. It's okay to say love. And we need you right now, and we need to hear your words of wisdom, the wisdom of the Jewish wisdom that you know so well. And can you please let us know what is happening in the world?
What is happening? It's like retuning an instrument. The world is being retuned, reset, and it's going to be a lot better when it's done. So we have very good things to look forward to, but we got to get past this painful, scary adjustment period. So the first thing we need to know is the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that nothing, and literally nothing, happens or can happen without a direct divine purpose. Nothing happens incidental to another event. Nobody gets hurt because everybody is getting hurt. God pays attention to every detail, certainly to every human being. And nothing is going to happen to anybody that isn't meant to happen. So calling it a pandemic might be a little misleading. Yes, it's happening to a lot of people. Many things happen to a lot of people all the time. Now we're going through something unusual and unexpected, and we don't really understand it very well. But what else is new? What do we understand? What happens is we get used to certain realities, and we consider that life. This is life. What is your life? A little travel, a little shopping, a little entertainment. You go here, you go there, you come back. We started to really believe that that's life. Now we're realizing that is not life. That needs to be avoided right now. So the stores are closed, entertainment is shut down, sports is canceled. Does that mean our life is over? On the contrary, it means that now we are focused on what life really is. Primarily at home. This is where we live. The rest is just distraction. Commentary. This is where we live. And people are panicking, not so much from the virus, but from the thought of being home alone with your family all day, day after day. Now there's a scary thought. So there's this joke going around online that parents with children not going to school, they will find the cure to this virus before the doctors do because they're more desperate. That's very sad. To be able to have your children home and spend full time all day with your children, why is that scary? Uncomfortable? Frightening? Why? So somebody asked recently, my husband is home all day long. What am I going to do with him? Or in reverse. Our thinking has to be adjusted. We've gotten way off track with our lives. To not have to go to work and to be able to spend your entire day at home, is that not heavenly? Is that not a blessing? The need to work, by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread, that was a curse. That was the punishment for eating from the tree of knowledge. That is not life. So now God is telling us, get back to life. Break some of these habits, even your thinking habits. And this is so appropriate in the week before Pesach, or the month before Pesach, because what is Pesach all about? Coming out of slavery, coming out of the restrictions that we live with. So right now we are experiencing an exodus, a liberation from habits, from a lifestyle that is not really life. We're being freed. We're being taken out of Egypt, the Egypt of our habits. And now we can readjust. We can retune our lives to what it's meant to be, to what is real, to becoming more appreciative of who is important in my life, what's important in my life, who is essential to me. These are good things. And it'll be a little awkward because we're not used to this, having family, being home alone with your family. But once we get adjusted, it's going to be fantastic. And we will be changed, I think, permanently. We're not going to go back to the foolishness of thinking that running around and doing stuff is life. So we're being elevated to a mature, to a more meaningful, and to a holier way of living. This is good stuff. This is very good stuff.
Rabbi Friedman, the last time you were here, you said that for Mashiach to come, three things need to happen. One is, well, we've got one down. We don't need to work anymore, at least temporary. Two, Jews need to be proud of being Jewish, and the rest of the world needs to accept who Jewish people are. Are those two things happening?
Not enough, obviously, not enough. But yes, these things are going to happen. I think when people start to look inward, when we're forced to do that, good things will happen. People will become more moral, and we're seeing that already. People are becoming more concerned with others. People are being more considerate, even imposing self-quarantine on themselves to protect others who are maybe more vulnerable. So good stuff is coming out, and without struggle, it's coming natural. And the need to work, I don't know how that's gonna end up. I mean, where's our livelihood gonna come from? But it is telling us that going to work, having a job, having a career is not life. It's just a support for your life. But what is your life? So we are becoming sobered to some important truths. You know, in the Jewish community, if you want to draw the contrast, it was just a few months ago that they had this amazing event with 190,000 people. Was it 190? It was 90,000 people in a stadium, and they were celebrating the conclusion, the study of the entire Talmud. It was a huge event, very public, and it was a gift that we gave to God. After all these years since the event at Sinai, Jews are still busy studying his Torah. It's a nice gift, but look at how different the world is now. There are no gatherings of 90,000 people. 10 is too much. Now, all of a sudden, we've gone to the each individual in their own little lives, in their own little way, is experiencing what life is really all about. It's not the big gatherings, not the public displays. It's what goes on at home. This is where God really rests.
Rabbi Friedman, but as you said, eventually this can't last. People can't stay in their houses forever. And eventually we will have to go back to what is not life, but what is life as we knew it before. And to make a living, I mean, unless you know something we don't.
Well, I don't. But yeah, it is definitely temporary. I think by the time Pesach is over, this thing is going to be over too. Because, like the wisest man, King Solomon said, for everything there is a time and a season. And one of the things that he mentions in that list, time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace, a time for war. There's also a time to embrace, to hug, and there's a time to avoid embracing, to refrain from embracing, which is a perfect description of our time. But if we want to understand it properly, there's a time for everything. What is he telling us? A few things. First of all, that nothing is permanent. Things happen because it's time for them to happen. When the time is over, they stop happening. Everything has its time. So this too shall pass. That's one of the meanings. Another interesting thing is there's a time to refrain from embracing. Is that bad news? Are we contrasting good stuff with bad stuff? Is he telling us that there are good times and bad times? Like a time to be born and a time to die? Good and bad? That's the contrast? I don't think so. There is nothing bad. There is no time or season for bad. It doesn't deserve its own time and its own season. So, for example, there's a time to speak and a time to be silent. Being silent doesn't mean you're not available. So there's a beautiful story where the previous Rebbe was a child, and he was with his father, who was the Rebbe before him. So we'll refer to the Rebbe as Rebbe and the child as a child. They were walking in the streets someplace outside of Russia, maybe Germany, and his father was explaining something to him. And he loved it. He loved the attention. He loved the wisdom. In fact, he mentions in the diary that as they were walking down the street, people would stop and stare at his father. The holiness, the beauty of his appearance. And all of a sudden, his father stopped talking and was lost in thought. And for a moment, the child, the previous Rebbe, felt like he had been abandoned and that he was all alone and his father was in a different world. And he felt terribly small. But then he realized his father is preparing to say something to him that is deeper and richer and greater than anything he's told him before. And so he needs to formulate. He needs to prepare what he's going to say. So he hasn't abandoned him. On the contrary, he's reaching deeper. So the silence, the temporary silence, the time for silence, does not mean a time for separation. It's not separation. It's a deeper commitment. It's a deeper attachment. And the same is true with embracing and not embracing. There's a time to embrace, which means there's a time to show the affection you're feeling. But there's a time to refrain from embracing because you need to dig up, cough up a deeper attachment, a deeper affection that can't be expressed in a hug. So all of the things that King Solomon is describing are forms of connection and forms of goodness. Sometimes they're obvious and sometimes they're deep. And the deep is not always obvious. So being quiet doesn't mean that you've lost interest in the person you're talking to. And not hugging doesn't mean you've lost affection. So what's happening now, we can't hug anybody except our immediate families. So we are being forced to think a little more deeply. What is affection? Who do you really like? How do you show that you like somebody? We've gotten used to these artificial, external, superficial forms of communication. We actually use the internet to communicate. That's terrible. When you say somebody likes me, does that mean that they really think highly of you or that they pushed a button on their computer that said like? So we've lost the deep and truly meaningful needs that life demands, and now we need to go back to it. So how we're going to survive it, I'm really not sure. I am sure that we're going to come out a lot better than before. The world is going to be more sober. Even politically, we were very worried about Iran with their nuclear ambitions. Well, right now, Iran has other problems. We were worried about China, powerful nation. Well, we don't need to worry about that right now. Are we going to go back, like you say? When it's over, we're going to go back? No, we're not going back. It's going to be different. We may have to go back to work, but it's not going to be the same. We're going to leave our homes eventually, and we're going to travel again, but it's not going to be the same. We're going to be wiser, more mature, more sober, more centered. We're going to be healthier people. And healthier people is better people. And better people is more godly people. And that's where we need to end up. So all of this is preparation for the world becoming what it's meant to be. We tried our best, but we need a little help from above. So this is God giving us a little push into the right direction.
And do you think?
So, yeah.
And do you think just a couple of more weeks is going to do it? It seems like we should be resetting for years to truly reset.
I hope we don't need that long to reset, because our problem is not that deep. It's just that we've gotten distracted. So all we need is a little wake-up call, and we'll be fine. So the fact that it comes in this season, this whole thing hit us between Purim and Pesach, the two best months of the year for us. So this has got to be a good development. This has got to be a positive thing. Obviously, there's some pain and there's some tragedy, but let's think about this for a minute. We're getting very upset that there are people dying from corona. Is that a good thing? Is that even nice? We're upset because they're dying from the virus, and if they died from something else, we wouldn't be upset. Death is upsetting. It's totally unnecessary as far as I can tell. There's nothing good about it. And we should object to all death. Just because we have a name for it doesn't make it worse. So every death is a tragedy. Whatever the doctors write on the paper, cause of death, really, who cares? It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. It's something that we should never get comfortable with, no matter what the description or the explanation is. So every death is a tragedy. It's a sign that we're not yet free of gullus. We're not yet where we need to be, because when we are, pain will stop and suffering will stop, because that's definitely temporary. There's also another thing we should think about, which hasn't gotten a lot of press. What is permanent, life or death? What's forever? Living or dying? We have this assumption, this conviction. Life is temporary, death is forever. That's backwards. That is not a good attitude towards life. Life is forever, death is temporary. When a person passes away, the life continues just without the body. And the body was never alive. It gets its life from the soul. So the soul continues to live because it's alive. The body is no longer alive because from dust you are, and to dust you will return. But that's only the body. The question is, God created us in bodies. We are born into a body because without the body, you can't do what God needs you to do. Most of the mitzvot, if not all, involve some physical object. The dough for the matzah, the vegetable for the bitter herbs, the arm to put the tefillin on, the wax for the candles. Without those things, you can't do the mitzvah. So when does the body get its reward for making all these mitzvahs possible? You can't just reward the soul, because the soul could never do the mitzvah without the body. So the body that did the mitzvah will come back to life to receive its reward. And when it comes back to life, it will never die again. So death is temporary. Life is permanent. We have to have that respect for life in order to live fully. So when a virus comes along, it's interesting that it's a virus, because there's a difference between bacteria and viruses. I'm not a doctor, but I'm sure that this is true. There are good bacteria and bad bacteria. There's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol. There's the good inclination and there's the evil inclination. But inclination can be good or bad. Bacteria can be good or bad. The good bacteria is absolutely necessary to be healthy. But there is no good virus. Viruses don't come in good. They only come in bad. Why? Because a virus doesn't have a life of its own. It's a parasite. It gets its life by drawing it out of that which is alive. And that which is not alive, the parasite, it's got to go. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing useful. So what is the response to a virus? A virus which has no life of its own? Of course, the antidote is more life, more enthusiasm about life, more focused on life. So the more alive we are, the less the virus can affect us. Because the virus is a disinterest in life, a cynicism, a negativity, and all negativity should be cured with positivity. So you would think that with people getting sick or being at risk, with people dying, we should be very, very serious, and we should be very worried, and we should be very frightened and want to fight back. But not when it's a virus. A virus is, the danger of the virus is that you become too scared, you become intimidated, you're afraid to live, you're afraid to breathe. That's the virus. Don't want to go there. You want to do the opposite. The opposite. Life is wonderful. Life is meaningful. God is waiting for us to respond positively. And the more positive we are, the less the virus has to feed on. So if we slow down, if we get a little negative and a little resigned to negative things, then the virus is winning. So we don't let it win. Simply by being more enthusiastic about life, keep life going so the parasite can't get to it.
Rabbi Friedman, sometimes people say that it's irresponsible. So I would love to be very positive, but then I need that reality check. When am I being too positive, and where is the reality? What is the reality? Is fear what is killing the people now, or is it not being careful enough and not treating it seriously enough? Where is that fine line? How do we tell it?
There are extremes in both directions. There are people who are highly, highly reckless and careless, irresponsible, and then there are people who are killing themselves with panic and with anxiety. So obviously, both extremes are not good. We have to be responsible. That doesn't mean that we have to be negative. On the contrary, the more positive you are about life, the more likely you are to be responsible and to do what you need to do, or the best to our knowledge and understanding. Because I'm not sure we know what we're dealing with here. The news changes every day, but we do know one thing: washing your hands, absolutely good idea. Keeping your hands from your face, very good idea. But you know, the Torah told us this 2,000 years ago. When you wake up in the morning, don't touch your face before you wash your hands. Don't transfer germs from one place to another. The hands can handle certain germs that the eye can't. There are germs in different parts of the body. They are where they belong. Don't transfer them from one place to another. So if you scratch your feet, don't scratch your eyes. Don't rub your eyes. So we were told this a long time ago. And why we're careless about that is strange. So what do we tell our children? What's going on? One of the ways of describing it to the children is simply to say, every little thing counts. Tiny little things count. Even things you can't see are very important. They can be very good or they can be very bad. So a microscopic virus can kill people. What can a microscopic kindness do? Even just thinking better about another person. Could that possibly make a difference? Yes, it can. We now know that for a fact. Tiny things that you can't see are just as real and powerful, if not more powerful. So what we're learning is that tiny things matter, and that's why we have to wash our hands and not transfer things from one place to another where they don't belong. Which means, don't bring germs from your feet to your mouth. Don't bring germs from the street to the house. Don't bring what is foreign and not related into your relationship. Keep things where they belong. It's a very powerful message, no? But we're better off if we do it with joy and enthusiasm than out of panic and negativity. So the positivity is not an indifference or a carelessness, it's the opposite. If you're enthusiastic about life, do what it takes. And you will more likely do what it takes. So you're absolutely right. We can't be careless and we can't be unrealistic. But we don't have to believe in the negative. You believe in the positive, you take care of the negative. We deal with it. You don't worship it. You don't surrender to it. You don't give it more power than it already has. Especially when it's a virus that has no power. It's desperate to get some life from you. It's a parasite. So don't let it get even close. And the way to do that is by being fully alive, intensely alive. And that involves being optimistic, being positive, being happy, not happy about a virus, happy about life, so that the virus doesn't have access. That's the key. Give it no access. And without access, it goes away. It has nothing to live on. And the fact that it's coming before Pesach is an amazing thing. The only thing that is not kosher on a microscopic level is the chametz on Pesach.
And I guess that applies to the whole world nowadays. Now everybody have no choice but to trust the wisdom that we possess. So hopefully, Rabbi Friedman, this was amazing as always. Having you on is always just a ray of light into our lives, and we are so, so grateful for you to taking time out and doing this. And this message from you has been utmost important, and with tremendous gratitude from myself and our radio and our entire community. Thank you so much. Thank you. And those words of positivity hopefully will do a lot of good for everybody who has just heard them or will hear them on our social media. We will place this and share it, and hopefully this message will be helpful and effective.
Most years, sorry to interrupt, most years when Pesach is coming, we get a little nervous. There's a lot of work, cleaning the house, getting rid of the chametz, preparing everything for Pesach. Oh, it's so much work. And now, what else do you have to do? You got all the time in the world to get the house ready, and the kids will help, and your husband will help because he has nothing else to do. This is going to be the greatest Pesach we've ever had. It's not going to be so public, but it'll be so meaningful. And we will come out of this, without a doubt, we will come out of this so much better.
I can only say amen at this point, and may everything you said really, truly happen. And happy Passover to you, your family, and everybody who's listening, who's Jewish and who is not. Just want to wish good things to everybody. Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.